This was around where you expressed that you didn't want to be forced to breathe in petrol fumes from ICE drivers. And one of our viewers responded, couldn't agree more about being forced. Those who complain about being forced to buy an EV don't give two hoots about me being forced to breathe in their fumes. I'm not bothered about CO2, and it's a pity that this has been all the focus until recently. Smog might have got more supporters. Dave didn't cover this, but the legislation was brought in after an estimated 5,000 people died in London in 1 week. Modern estimates say around 10,000. And that is really one of the big things that we need to consider in this.
Yeah, you're talking about the Great Smog, which was 1957. Did a video on this a little while back because we deal with air pollution as well. And it was a very unique circumstance of weather. There was a pressure system which just held the weather stationary, and it was cold and foggy. And the standard form of heating at that point was coal. Every house had a coal fire, at least one. The house I was born in and brought up in had a coal fireplace in every single room, including the bedrooms. They got stuffed up in the winter to stop the draft coming in. But the combination of this static weather and all these houses chucking out smoke, particles, soot and everything, it was just a killer. And yeah, as you say, somewhere between 5,000 and 10,000 people died in a very short period of time. It was almost instantaneous that when this came down. And one of the things a lot of people miss is that while the financial side of an EV is very, very important, particularly to me, I was spending £400 a month on diesel before, not spending even £100 a month on electric now. But once you start driving and you actually realise that there's no pollution coming out of the car at all. So when I go walking now, I often go to Jonas, we go out with the grandkids, and when you try and cross at the traffic lights and the cars are there churning out the fumes, it's quite horrendous. And this is becoming much more of an issue, particularly since there was a young girl who died in London a few years back, and the coroner put the cause of death down as airborne pollution. Airborne pollution, really, really, really serious issue. The number of cars on the road is just horrendous, just chucking out all the pollution, and this is becoming a much bigger issue.
I don't think that a lot of ICE drivers, ICE vehicle owners really appreciate this. So I don't drive myself. I don't have an EV. I don't have that sort of money to be spending as much as you do. But so that means that I have to walk or get a bus anywhere that I go. So most of the time I'm walking because I don't even want to pay for a bus. And what I notice is that the smog, the fumes, especially as soon as traffic builds up at traffic lights, is that it's really unpleasant to be around. And I think so many people are just so used to that being part of their life that they don't appreciate the impact that it's having on air pollution, air quality.
It's really serious because virtually every city in Europe actually breaks the European regulations sometime every day. And if you go down a drive in South Wales on the M4, they've got mandatory 50 mile an hour speed limits and big signs on the side saying to improve air quality, that a car going at 70 mile an hour puts out about twice as much pollution as one doing 50. It's becoming a big issue. It's an opportunity missed, I think, because when all this started brewing up and it all got very complicated with global warming, climate change, airborne pollution, electric cars. But it just got a bit of a mess. And had we just concentrated on one thing, and here's a figure for you, the NHS has reported that they believe about 50,000 people die prematurely each year, purely down to the air quality.
And we've seen that. So with the impact of all of the social distancing, isolation, when a lot of people weren't driving, we saw the rate of hospitalizations drop from asthma and anything related to air quality. So this is something that perhaps we just don't always appreciate how much of an impact these vehicles are having, these petrol burning, diesel burning vehicles.
It comes down to scale, really, that we have a very big climate, the atmosphere. It's probably best part of 100 miles high, goes right round the world, and it's huge, absolutely monstrously huge. And if you had one car chucking out really bad pollution, the atmosphere, the climate, it can just absorb that. It'll deal with it. It's what it does all the time. It's a balance. It can neutralise it. If 100 cars do it, no problem at all. But you reach a point where, and this happens with streams, with stagnant water, when a stream is flowing, it can take away pollution, distribute it, disperse it, and you don't really notice it. But if you put enough pollution into, say, a stream, or the flow slows down, what you see is it builds up and you end up with stagnant water.
And I think the UK is becoming a bit famous, unfortunately, for not only its poor air quality, but its poor water quality.
It is,
And the point is, we do have an impact and we have to moderate that. And if we take it too far, something needs to be done to bring that back. Now, there's always questions about how to do that, and I won't put you on the spot for trying to solve all of society's ills, but that's just an observation from myself.
No, it is a big issue, but and it's one that surprises me that people who drive ICE cars are so adamant that they want to keep them, and I'm thinking, we're killing our kids, we're killing our grandkids prematurely. We're causing asthma, we're causing lung diseases, breathing diseases, all sorts of things. We'll know it. Nobody in the right mind would sit inside the car with the engine running in an enclosed space, because everyone knows it's actually lethal. So the fumes coming out of your car are lethal.
But before we get too sort of carried away with that one, of course, there's no emissions coming out of the vehicle, but is that not just all getting put onto the power stations? Are they not just burning coal? Are they not just burning oil and gas? And are we just shifting the problem around?
Well, the answer is yes, we are. However, it's the extent. I don't know if most people realise, but we're down to our very last coal-fired power station. They've just been being phased out over the last 20 or 30 years because of the pollution side of it. Also because of the cost. The coal went very expensive, but it was mainly to do with pollution. So today, if we have a look, I won't do it right now, but if we have a look at the actual split of energy, it's midday, it's a reasonably breezy day, nice and bright. The solar panels and the wind turbines will be pumping out, I would guess, probably 2/3, maybe 3/4 of our power. So if anyone charges at the moment, no, they're not just transferring it to coal-fired or gas-fired power stations. It's almost certainly going to wind farms and solar farms.
And if there's somebody that I suppose is more socially conscious, wants to actually reduce their impact and know that they're not doing it, do they have any way of knowing when they plug in, whether at home or out and about?
I'm going to do this right now, because this is the actual reading, and it is saying it is 1 p.m. on the we're the 11th today, aren't we? 1 p.m. 11th of April, and the split is as follows: coal 0.25 gigawatts, which is 0.7%, less than 1% of our electricity being generated right this second while we're filming is coal. Gas is just 9.2%, less than 10%. Solar 16.5. So solar at the moment, it's April, it's not the brightest of days. Solar is producing almost twice as much electricity as gas. And the big one is the wind, that's 33.5%, and hydroelectric 1.2, nuclear 14.8, biomass, debatable one, that's 8.9, and then we have the interconnector, which is actually 14%. That is electricity we buy in or sell back to the grids in Europe. So today, for example, there's virtually no coal, virtually no gas, less than 10% coal and gas combined. Everything else is either renewable or nuclear, biomass, or coming from Europe. So it's not a case. And I think you had an implied question there: is there anything we can do? Yeah. If you have one of these and you're retired like me and you can charge whenever you want, let's say you can't charge at home, you have to use a public charger, just keep an eye on this. And when you see it's running at 60, 70, 80% renewable, just nip out and go and charge. And you know in your mind that you're using renewable energy for the large part of it. Just an interesting point.
And also home terrace, there are some that offer 100% renewable energy as well. So that's, if you're doing most of your charging at home, is that
No, that's a bit of a con. What the renewable means in that sense, when GridServe, for example, say we use 100% renewably sourced energy, what it means is they will buy off the grid, and whatever the grid split is, that's what they're getting. So everyone today, if they're using the grid, will be getting 0.7% from coal. What the utility companies and the generators have to do is they have to then have some sort of offset against that. So they will have to use, do something, carbon capture or planting trees, whatever it is, but to match whatever carbon that the electricity you're using at this moment in time is producing. There's so many weird and wild schemes about these carbon capture and these offsets and everything else. I'm not sure they actually work. However, it's heading this way at the moment that sooner or later we're not going to be able to use anything other than renewable. In fact, we had, not last December, December before, we had 5 consecutive days where there was no fossil fuel burnt at all. And it was all either renewable or nuclear or hydro. And we're heading that way. And they're reporting that by the end of the century, which is only, end of the decade, which is only 6 years away, they will be having regular days throughout the year where they don't use any fossil fuels at all.
Can't come soon enough, I think.
I agree.
This app nonsense needs to stop. Imagine having to use an app at a petrol station. So we do know a lot of EV networks are very keen to promote their own app, to take your personal information for signing up to the app, and even offering discounts to use it. So what do you think of the situation around all these networks having apps?
Yeah, the first comment is probably a facetious one to some people, and that is you already use apps. If you pay for your petrol with a mobile phone banking app or Apple Pay or Google Pay, you're using an app to buy your petrol. Simple as that. So if you also use a Nectar card, it's effectively an app to collect points, or a Tesco card, whatever it is. We're used to using apps. But the law now is that you don't need apps. All of the chargers will work with contactless. That's a simple fact. Whatever charge you go to now, it will work with a contactless bank card. Now, do you need apps? No, but do you want them? Actually, I think you probably do. So for example, with Apple Green, they give you a 2p per kilowatt hour discount if you use their app. And a lot of them are the same. You get a very small discount. 2p, well, 2p out of 77p, well, it's 2 or 3%. It's worth having. But some of them go further. So, for example, Ionity, they have an app which will give you what they call their passport, and that will give you a discount. So you pay a monthly subscription, it's about £5, and in return you'll get a much cheaper rate. And that can only be accessed through the app because they need to know who you are. So you will have cases where you definitely want to use an app, but I can say categorically that every charger you go to now will have contactless, and there is no need whatsoever to use an app.
I don't know how much of an issue this is, but I'll leave this up to you. So one of our viewers comments that cables are getting cut and stolen from public car parks in their neck of the woods. Is this a national phenomenon? And if so, how would we go about fixing it? How would councils, how would EV networks go about fixing it?
I don't have an answer to this one. This is a society problem, not an EV charging problem. I'm sure in that area they're probably also taking lead off church roofs and taking railings out of parks. If people are prepared to do that, it's not an EV issue at all. It is a society issue. That's something for the police or for the council, whoever it is who will take responsibility for that.
So looking into that, so we travel around the country, going to different networks. I don't recall any of our trips where we've come across one with a cut cable. Have any of your trips out, have you ever seen a cable that's been cut off?
No. I've been travelling for 4 years now with an EV, so I charge continuously, mostly at home, but obviously a lot out on the road. I have never personally come across a cable that's been missing. cut out or just missing. One other thing I would mention is some of the cables now, they're no longer using copper, which does have quite a high value. Some of them are using aluminium cables, some of them steel cables, and they have a very different scrap value. So one of the answers might be to just switch the cable out for something different, which doesn't have the same appeal. But the answer to that one, in my opinion, at the end of the day, is for someone to put CCTV cameras there, find out who's doing it, and put them in jail.
So you mentioned that there's different materials that go into the cables themselves. So if it was just as simple as everyone moving over to, say, an aluminium cable, is there any reason that they're not already doing that?
I don't know. I'm trying to arrange a meeting in the very near future with an EV charger manufacturer, public charger manufacturer, based down in Leicester or Coventry, can't remember which. And I'll be asking them these sorts of questions. But I know some of the ones are using aluminium, because if you look at aluminium, it's very, very much lighter than copper. Surprised me. A long time ago, I don't know if you remember, we were doing all sorts of things, but we were working with different metals, and we got a little tube, about the size of a toothpaste tube, one out of copper, another one identical size out of aluminium. When you pick them up, it's a phenomenal difference. It's like this one's about 10 times heavier. Real noticeable difference. So some of the manufacturers, I believe, are looking at aluminium. It's not as good as a conductor, but it's very much lighter, and it's also much cheaper. So I don't have enough knowledge to say whether it would be a good thing to do generally. But you have to realise that most of the networks, like your grid serves, your Ionities, your Ospreys, they don't have any say in this whatsoever. They will go to a manufacturer of EV chargers like ABB, and they will say, I want a 300 kilowatt, I'll have that one. And it comes with a cable attached to it. They can't, in most cases, go to the manufacturer and say, do you have any alternatives? These manufacturers tend to do nice packages where this is what you get everything you need all in one go. And I wouldn't say they discourage you, but they probably won't welcome you if you start saying, well, can I have that module and that cable and this plug? Yeah, most charging networks will just take whatever's given to them.
So one of the things that we have seen out and about is that some EV networks have very thick, very heavy cables. Do we know whether that is they're the copper ones and that's why they're heavy, or have we got any understanding of that?
The answer is we could guess, but I don't have that information. We came across this recently at Kenn Lodge Services on the A74M in Scotland. And that cable there was really thick. It was noticeably about 2 or 3 times thicker than anything I've used before. It was amazingly heavy. I think have we released that video yet?
Not. No, okay. Well, it might be out by the time that this video goes up, we'll see.
There's one, it's specifically on the Swarco units, and that was one where they have one of these spring-loaded cable supports on it. But I actually went and tried to lift the cable off that support. I couldn't, it was so heavy, it was stunningly heavy. And yet when I went down to Trentham Gardens, they got Tesla 4.5 metre cables on the new V4s. I just picked that up and walked with it. It's really flexible, really light, really thin. I don't know is the answer. I suspect it's done for the manufacturer's benefit. It's cheaper. That's my guess, but I might be maligning some of the manufacturers. It is very noticeable that the Tesla cables are noticeably thinner. And I do now, by the way, and the video might be out by the time this is released, but I have a gauge which allows me to measure the diameter. What do they call calipers? Measurement calipers. And I'm going to take these round. I'm actually going to do the actual measurement. So it's not going to be my subjective, I think that's thicker than that one. It's going to be, here's the reading off a Tesla one, V2, V3, V4. Here's a reading off a GridServe 360. Here's one off a 350. Here's one off an Ionity. And we'll do a table of these so you can see the actual thickness of the cable. So it's not going to be subjective. It's going to be what we find.
So if we're going to do all these measurements, how are we going to get them to our viewers? Because they might miss if it's only in one video. So how can we share this information more widely?
We put an awful lot of information onto our Patreon channel. Now, we're not trying to force people onto the Patreon channel, but there's only so much we can do on YouTube. We have a very punishing schedule. We put out a video every day, and some days we put out 2 videos, and it's really punishing. It is hard work. But we have to get those videos out. They have to go out every single day. When we have some time to spare, we can sit back and we can do things on the Patreon channel that we just we couldn't make another video about it. I mean, a table, as we just said, of different cable thicknesses, what a boring video that would be. But for some people, if we put that into the Patreon members page, all our Patreon members can go and look at it at their leisure. They don't have to sit through a boring video, and they can go, oh, I never knew that.
So, in other words, you've given me more work for the Patreon channel today.
Oh, no, that's your job.
No problem. Right, okay, Dave. So this is in response to the petrol stations on the brink, which was a very lively comment section on that video. The comment here is around one of our viewers who says they always enjoy your content, Dave, but I'm fed up of the constant waxing lyrical about the number of new rapid chargers. Yeah, they're springing up all over the country, but with the average price now 81 pence per kilowatt hour, they are horrendously overpriced. What about the people that can't charge at home? You can't keep pushing this ever larger elephant under the carpet. They're saying that is a big problem, the price that these EV networks are charging.
Oh, I absolutely agree. Couldn't agree more. And there are some things that I'm looking into at the moment to try and tackle this. As the first thing I would say is, if you are thinking of buying an EV, have a think about how you're going to charge it before you buy it. There are some people, I had I can't remember his name now, a comment from an Australian guy, and he says, you know, we have 1,000 miles between towns and there are no chargers on the way. And I replied to him, don't buy an EV, it won't work. There are some people who at this stage of the EV development probably shouldn't have an EV. So if you're one of those, just sit and wait. The situation will change, but some people will have to accept that you can't do it at the moment.
But wait, I thought you always promoted EVs and that they were the only option for everybody.
No,
okay.
Not at all. In many of my videos, I always say, look at your case situation and see if it's right for you. If it's not right, now that is my area, because we need to know what's to change. So if I take an average motorist with an EV, we do have home charging. The latest figures from PricewaterhouseCoopers say about 70% of all those who own EVs can charge at home.
Is that worldwide or is that
That's UK only. And what that means is that for the majority of us, we do have that luxury. So if I look at my figures, I'm going to give the actual figures here so you can get some idea of what I'm actually talking about. But for some people, we charge mainly at home. Some people only ever charge at home. They never do long distances, but most of us charge mainly at home. Got my statistics here. This is Tesla app, and it's set for the last month. And in the last month, my figures are 76% of all my charging was done at home. 2% was done on superchargers, and 22% was others.
Hang on a second. So we've heard and we've seen many pricing comparisons. Tesla superchargers in every video you said are a lot cheaper than all the others. So why is 22% of your charging not at these Tesla superchargers?
It's for you viewers. Out of choice, I would never go anywhere other than Tesla. The superchargers around about 40 pence a kilowatt hour. If you go off peak, can be as low as 25. I'd be mad to charge anywhere else. However, the channel is Dave Takes It On, and I realise not everybody owns a Tesla. So I do go out and I do charge at all of the networks, the GridServes, the Ionities, the Swarcos, the whatever it is, and they're the others. So that 22% is charges I've plugged into when I didn't need to for charging purposes, but I did need to make the video that I was making.
And if I recall, I think most of that will just be from that single trip we did up to Scotland, which was actually a big part of that.
In actual fact, yeah, you can. Let me do a screenshot of this right now. Right, I've got a screenshot. You're absolutely right. The trip we did to Scotland, it's gone off the chart on other charging. So what this means is I started from home, charged it up overnight, we set off and we stopped off. I think it's 6 or 7 locations on the way. We filmed at each one, and every one we plug in. Even if I don't need a charge, I plug in because I want to check what they are, how easy it is, any problems, any cables missing, any not working, how easy they are to use. So everywhere we go, I charge, but sometimes it's only 2 or 3 kilowatts just to get a feel for it. Other times, I remember this well on the trip because there's not a single Tesla supercharger we did on the Scottish trip. Didn't know that, I'd only just realised. But on that one, we stopped for lunch. And of course, while we stop for lunch, we just leave the car plugged in somewhere and it tops up. So this is all for the viewer benefits so that the videos we made showing the Swarcos, the new GridServe 360s,
which were not necessarily...
Well, that's a separate video, and that one has
video.
been released. The new, brand new, all singing, all dancing, top of the range 360 dual bay chargers for GridServe. We're actually only putting out about 45 kilowatts. Yeah, there's a story behind that. If you want to see that one, there's a video out already.
I'll put a link in.
We'll leave a link down below. So the reality is, if I was running a Tesla channel, my others would be 0. So I would be 76% home and 24% superchargers. Coming back to the question of price, if you do virtually all of your charging at home and once or twice a year or once a month you go out and you have to use one of these public chargers, it's a little bit like if you go on holiday, you're on a motorway and you're running low on petrol. You could drive off the motorway, look for something cheaper, but most people, I'll just put enough in to get me there. You'll pay the higher price for petrol or diesel at a motorway services. And that's the way I look at these chargers. If you're only using them occasionally, I don't mind if it costs me 30 or 40 quid to fill the battery. Because I know when I get home it's going to cost me 6 quid. So one-offs, I don't mind. But if you were constantly on the road, it's a very different matter. And I would say if you're constantly on the road and you're charging almost all of the time at a public charger, you would be crazy not to go for a Tesla.
And also just think about it for all the ICE drivers, petrol drivers. They don't have an app that directs them to the cheapest petrol station.
No.
So if they're on the motorway services and they see that as an opportunity to stop, they're going to be tempted to do that or have to get somebody else in the car to pull that out. With the Tesla, you've got something that will direct you to the nearest Tesla charger and also precondition your battery along the way for optimum charging.
And the other thing that a lot of people don't realise is that with EV charging, the motorway service stations charge exactly the same, like exorbitant price as if you're in a pub car park or...
I'm not sure that's a big selling point. They rip you off everywhere you go, but look, for some people that's a valuable service. It's just with home charging, most people won't use that.
So if you look at my particular case, roughly 3/4 of all my charging done at home at 6p. If a quarter of it is done at 80p, let's just take an example. If I put in 100 kilowatt hours, 75 of that will be at 6p, which is, what's that? 6 times 75p.
I'm not doing maths on the spot. I'll leave that to you.
That's 3 quid, I think, something like that. No, 15 quid. And the 25% at the 80p, that's going to be about 60 quid. If my maths is wrong, I'm sorry. But what I'm saying is, if you add the whole lot together, you'll find my average price I pay, if you add it all in, it's probably around about 8 or 10p. I could live with that.
Yes, I think some of the ICE drivers around there might actually love that sort of savings on their fuel.
Well, just to give comparison, if your car does 50 mile per gallon, petrol and diesel at the moment is around about 145. You're going to be spending, if it does 50 miles a gallon, you're going to be spending 15, 16, 17 pence per mile. If I can charge here overnight, I pay 7.5 pence to do 3 miles, 2.5 pence a mile.
And we know the motorways charge a lot more than the 145 you're talking.
Yeah, we were there the other day. So £1.78 on a motorway for, it's just blatant rip-off. It's not just EVs that get ripped off, it's you motorists. If you stop on a motorway services, first of all, you'll pay more for your petrol, but I think also McDonald's and everyone else just charges an extra quid on your bill.
But you get to look at the 60s crumbling architecture, so there are pros, I suppose.
Yeah.
Right, so this was my first opportunity to appear properly in front of camera and to get to ask Dave some of the questions from our subscribers, from our viewers on the channel. So I hope it was really informative. Dave, I hope it wasn't too tough on you, the questions I was asking.
No, I'll probably get a lot of comments about hesitation and repetition and everything else. It's a bit trickier than you think when you actually don't know the questions that are being asked. I'm just going on memory and trying to talk to a camera and look half human at the same time. So yeah, thanks for putting up with us. I hope you've enjoyed it. If you have, by the way, leave some comments down below, click the like button. It all helps, and let us know that you'd like to see more like this. If you haven't subscribed, please subscribe and click the notification bell so the next time we do a video and release it, you'll be notified that we have done. So thanks very much for watching. I'm Dave.
And I'm Jonas.